and we are live streaming our meeting on Facebook, the Communist Party of Britain Facebook, on YouTube and on Twitter. So also anyone who has missed this meeting, there will be a recording, you will be able to catch up with it. So if you can tell any comrades and friends who are missing it. I'm Liz Payne, I'm a member of the Communist Party of Britain, and I convene the women's group, the coordinating committee. And I'll be the one who will be introducing speakers and performers this evening. Our programme is varied, but fundamentally in the first part we have what we have traditionally called our rally speeches. They are interspersed in places with musical interludes, but the final half or third of the meeting will be entirely cultural. So I will talk you through it as we go, but for the speeches, I will take comrades, our comrade sisters, in country order, alphabetically. Don't worry, I'll call you and give you due warning. I do need to say, please could everyone who is going to speak stick to their time, because we have a lot of speakers, which is amazing. But if anyone goes on anywhere beyond their 6 or 7 minute allocation, that may cause some issues. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the main meeting, and I'm going to ask our comrade David, who is doing our technical support work this evening, and many thanks, David, if he could play the first piece of music. This is by a young pianist, Sarah Bahareh, who many of you have heard before. It is called Rentrée, and that means return, and it is by Wilhelm Peterson Berger. So thank you, Sarah. I'm not sure whether you're in the meeting or not, but this is the first piece that you're going to be playing to us this evening. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. I'm now going to read a greeting that has come to us this evening from the National Assembly of Women. The National Assembly of Women is Britain's affiliate to the Women's International Democratic Federation, and it is the 70th anniversary of the National Assembly of Women today, the 8th of March. So it's a very, very special day for us. This is the greeting that has been sent. National Assembly of Women greets this international meeting on the 70th anniversary of the foundation of our organisation on the 8th of March, 1952. From the very beginning, the National Assembly of Women has campaigned for peace and for a world free from the threat of war, without which we cannot gain true freedom, justice, and equality. It is with horror that we watch the conflict unfolding in Ukraine. As in every war, women and children make up the majority of those attempting to flee to safety. In the wake of the Second World War and at the height of the Korean War, the National Assembly of Women called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, and we do so now. People across the world have already been reeling from the impact of the global pandemic and the social and economic crisis that it created. This will be made even worse by the war in Ukraine. Over the past 10 years, the Conservative government in Britain has been systematically destroying the gains that were made in the post-war period. Now, 1 in 5 mothers in Britain are going without meals to feed their children, and millions of food bank parcels are distributed. At the same time, Britain's billionaires increase their wealth by £290 million every single day. The National Assembly of Women works closely with trade unions, peace organisations, environmental groups, and community campaigns to articulate an alternative, progressive agenda. Coming together at events like this, sharing our experience and showing solidarity with the struggles of our sisters across the world who are campaigning for the same rights, gives us the strength to fight for a better future for ourselves and our children in a world free from the threat of war. Thank you. I would like now to give the microphone to Comrade Sultana Jolly of the Communist Party of Bangladesh to make her contribution. Thank you, Sultana.
Comrade Liz,
Yes.
Sultana has not been able to log in. She's trying to log in. She's not in at the moment. And the performers from Udichi, Ashima, Tora, and Michelle are in, if you want them. Yeah,
okay.
They're in.
Comrade Nissa, thank you very, very much. No problem at all. What we will do is move to Comrade Ruth Stiles, the chair of the Communist Party of Britain. I'm taking countries in alphabetical order, so we will move to Ruth and give Comrade Sultana a little more time to get into the meeting. The floor is yours, Ruth.
Thank you, Liz. And thanks to the Coordinating Committee of Communist Parties in Britain for organising this event, enabling us to celebrate this day. I bring greetings from the Communist Party of Britain, our Executive Committee and our Women's Commission to all here tonight to mark International Women's Day 2022. I pay tribute to our party women who have helped develop our policies and have driven us forward. My mother, Jean Stiles, was the national women's organiser for our party in the 1970s. And I learned from her as she led the communist charge for women's equality. And I learned from her the importance of solidarity when she organised for the Grunwick women striking for trade union recognition, decent pay, and race and sex equality. Violence against women is a major public and clinical health problem and is one of the most pervasive human rights violations in the world. About 35% of women globally have experienced physical or sexual violence, both intimate partner violence and non-partner violence. But there are other forms of violence experienced by women. The violence of poverty, the violence of coercive control, the violence of sexual objectification and body commodification, the violence of education exclusion, and the violence of unwanted pregnancy, and of course, the violence that women experience during war. Depression and anxiety disorders, unplanned pregnancy, sexually transmitted infection, and HIV are higher in women who have experienced violence. And violence disproportionately affects women from lower income countries and regions at a rate substantially higher than the world average. Across the world, 81,000 women were killed in 2020, 58% at the hands of an intimate partner or family member. That's the equivalent of one death at home for every 11 minutes. Comrades, the daily experience of women under global capitalism is one of violence, damaging their health and well-being, and it is a crime. We salute the women in the developing countries who have organised impressive unity in this fight, creating class consciousness and the fight against global capitalism. Excuse me. Some sex equality progress has been made worldwide, but the COVID pandemic threatens this. A global study reveals women have been hit harder socially and economically than men. For example, 26% of women have reported loss of work compared with 20% of men in 2020. Femicide in Britain triggered national outrage in 2021, but government responses have been inadequate, superficial, and short-sighted. And at the same time, they erode women's rights via other legislation. There has to be investment in prevention, especially through education, but nothing is offered. Our party calls for an immediate government action to end violence against women and girls at work, in society, in schools and colleges. Zero tolerance to all sexual harassment and sexual exploitation within our society. Action to provide and fund essential life-saving service for women and girls who have endured sex-based violence. Commitment and urgency in tackling institutional misogyny, sexism and racism within our police forces. Investment in measures aimed at changing the culture which tolerates and perpetuates violence towards women and girls. And immediate ratification of the Istanbul Convention and its enshrinement in British law to give support and protection free from discrimination to migrant women. Today, we honour the women who struggle for an end to violence against women, for female equality and peace in a violent and dangerous imperialist world. Capitalism is the problem and socialism is the solution. I'm going to read a very short verse that I wrote this afternoon called Women of the Working Class. We're the women of the working class. We're not fragile. We're not made of glass. Through our global strife and struggle, we will remain steadfast, strong, and fight through the pain. You see, we're of the international working class, and together we will see liberation at last. Long live the international working class movement, and long live International Women's Day. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you so much. Thank you, comrade. I'm now going to introduce someone who needs little introduction to many, many of you. We have invited again Silvia Balducci, who has sung for us at our event on a number of occasions. I'm introducing Silvia here because Silvia wishes to dedicate her songs to the women of Chile and the women of Latin
You fucking
America.
dishwasher. Go make me a sandwich, fucking bitch.
And it is important, very, very important to notice here
Big
that the
balls.
Communist Party of
Anyone
Chile.
has like
fucking
cock in
pigs,
here?
you fucking deep shits,
Anyone
you
else
fucking
like cock?
pigs.
Yeah, I got a
cock.
We're being
You
zoomed
fucking
on.
old pig.
Yes, we
You
are.
old pig,
Hello,
you
this
fucking
is
nasty.
Phoenix and welcome
Go back
to
to the
the
fucking
channel.
kitchen.
Tell me what to do, you fucking
We
Nick,
will
Not
you're
be
still here?
communist, you
Nick,
will be
we
on
are going
why you
to say the
why
recording of Sylvia
Don't tell me
now.
what to do, you
what
fucking
are you doing
Indian.
here? What are you doing?
Shut the fuck up, you
Oh,
fucking old bitch.
Fuck the ass teeth, bitch. I don't give a fuck about what you saying to me because your mama don't got no arms, fuck
Yeah,
nigga.
you fucking
You
old
ugly as
bitch,
shit,
you
bitch.
fucking
Tell your mama to
you
grow
know,
some
Gopal
arms.
Das, na?
She don't got no
You
fucking
actually
arms.
think that
Your
joke
mama
was
got
funny.
no
There wasn't nobody's left.
Don't
tell me what
Now
to
that
do.
you over the past 20 years, this is when the torture joke, you have secret enemies. Hey, some of your mama in chat right now with the arm.
everyone. We have a lot of unwelcome participants in the meeting, and we are going to try to continue the meeting, but same thing happens again. We are going to have to close the meeting and reconvene it. We are going to play some music from Sylvia.
Good evening, everybody, and happy International Women's Day to all our dear comrades and friends who are attending tonight's event. I want to thank you very much, the organization in London, and for having me as well as a guest artist tonight. I have prepared a special program for you and 4 songs, and I want to dedicate this 8th of March 2022 to the women of Chile, who have reached fantastic achievement in the last 2 or 3 years since the social movement began in 2019. The new government has 50% of women in the cabinet, and many are ministers of health, of defense, of sports, of Minister of Equal Gender Equality, and Minister of Justice. Amongst the ministers, we have the granddaughter of Salvador Allende, the Chilean president who was assassinated by Pinochet coup d'etat in 1973. Her name is Maya Fernandez. I also want to pay homage to a woman who's a Mapuche. She's a member of the indigenous people of Mapuche. She was also elected as president of the Constitutional Assembly, and her name is Elisa Lancon. I want to praise her for being the first indigenous woman to actually achieve that status. And also, I want to dedicate these songs to one of the greatest and most influential artists in Latin America, along Frida Kahlo and many other important women. Her name is Violeta Parra. She was the founder, mother of the new Chilean song movement back in the 50s and 60s. She died in 1967, and she was an influential artist. She was a visual artist, musician, composer, poet, and music researcher. And her seminal work still lingers on today, and I have been inspired by her music since I was a young child, and I want to dedicate these special versions of her songs to you all, and to the women of Chile and the women of Argentina who finally achieved the legalized abortion in December 2020. There are only 4 countries in Latin America who have a legalized abortion. So we still have a long way to go to reach social equality and justice for women. To all of you, have a happy evening. Thank you very much. Happy International Women's Day. We're going to move further down the Latin American continent, where a lot of political and social movement are happening, mainly Chile and Argentina. And we heard that Argentina, they just won the law of the abortion that was finally passed 2 days ago. So I want to sing this song dedicated to the women of Argentina, and as well to all the people who are still fighting and struggling in Chile. And it's a song that we all know. It's called El Pueblo Unido Jamás Será Vencido. A people united will never be defeated. de pie, cantar, que vamos a triunfar, avanzan ya banderas de unidad y tú vendrás marchando junto a mí y así verás tu canto, tu bandera florecer, la luz de un rojo amanecer anuncia ya la vida que vendrá de pie, luchar, el pueblo va a triunfar, será mejor la vida que vendrá a conquistar nuestra felicidad y en un clamor mil voces de combate se alzarán, dirán canción de libertad con decisión la patria vencerá y ahora el pueblo que se alza en la lucha con voz de gigante gritando adelante, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido, la patria está forjando la unidad, de norte a sur se movilizará desde el salar ardiente mineral al bosque austral, unidos en la lucha y al trabajo irán, la patria cubrirán, su paso ya anuncia el porvenir de pie cantar, el pueblo va a triunfar, millones ya imponen la verdad, de cero son ardiente batallón, sus manos van llevando la justicia a la razón, mujer con fuego y con valor, ya estás aquí junto al trabajador y ahora el pueblo que se alza en la lucha con voz de gigante gritando adelante, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido, the people united will never be defeated, the people united will never be defeated, viva Chile, viva Argentina, viva América Latina, viva Chile, Argentina, viva América Latina. El pueblo jamás será vencido, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido por la vida que vendrá. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, I hope everyone can hear me. And we are going to stand united. We're not going to be defeated, and we are going to move. David is going to unmute Comrade Stella Salusti from ACEL Cyprus to make her contribution. If this fails, stay with us and we will go to some more music. We will continue this meeting. We will celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you, comrades. Stella, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, beautifully. Please
Great.
continue.
Dear comrades, friends, we honor today, the 8th of March, as a day of remembrance, a day of struggle for the women of Cyprus and all the women of the world who are fighting for their rights against poverty and exploitation, for peace and social justice. During these difficult times, our thoughts are with the Ukrainian people who are being brutally tested, and our thoughts are with the women and the children of Ukraine, the civilian population living through the whirlwind of war. We condemn all military intervention and emphasize that the respect for independence, territorial integrity of states, and non-interference in the internal affairs are basic norms of international law. Through the years of struggle, the women's movement can easily come to a conclusion. We live in a system based on exploitation while reproducing inequalities. We are already in the third decade of the 21st century, but in many countries, women's rights continue to trample on payment gap, murders, sexism, compulsory marriages, and many others. The forces of plutocracy and the neoliberal right in Cyprus and Europe have proved to be the steamers of social and labor conquests. Working women and the working class in general pay a heavy price every day for their neoliberal policies. Unfortunately, in Cyprus of 2022, it has not yet been discernible in society and in the state what gender-based violence is. The term includes any harmful act against human dignity on the basis of gender. It is directly related to inequality, the social position of power between men and women. According to the internationally recognized definitions of gender-based violence, its main types are four: sexual, physical, psychological, and economic violence. What we're experiencing every day is an increase in violence and sexual harassment against women, redundancies, reductions in wages and benefits, wage discrimination, attacks on sexism, both in the public space and in the private sector, the dismantling of social state, inadequacy in the childcare network, the abandonment of vulnerable groups, an increase in poverty and social exclusion, and many others that impose greater and stronger participation in the fight for equality and social justice. We are fighting for equal pay, for a reduction in the wage gap. We are against the liberalization of retail hours. We call for the restatement of the Sunday holiday, policies of support for the working woman and her family. We call for the creation of a single strategic plan to promote sexual and reproductive health, deletion of the spouse's need for consent for cases of invasive contraceptive methods, development of family planning programs, access of women to methods of contraception, summary of abortions in the general healthcare system, and creation of breast milk banks. We are fighting for a workplace with rights, paid parental leave, an extension of maternity leave, an increase in the state childcare and the elderly. We demand the implementation of the Istanbul Treaty and the formulation of a national plan to prevent and combat all forms of violence against women and domestic violence against them. We fight against gender stereotypes and perceptions, equal participation of women and their representation in all sectors of society, including decision-making procedures. The 8th of March 2022 should be the starting point for recognizing the heroiness of our everyday life. Women who, in conditions of insecurity and mental pressure, work hard take care of children and parents, speak openly denouncing their abusers. Today is not a day of celebration. It is a day of remembrance, honor, and a reminder that women are still fighting, claiming, demanding. It is a day that reminds us again that the road is still long, that there are still battles to be fought. Long live the 8th of March. Long live International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. That was a fantastic speech. Sorry that you got interrupted, but that was really great. And we will take this message on board, and please to send our greetings from all our parties and organisations to your comrades in Cyprus. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to move now to the Communist Party of Greece, the KKE, and call Angelio Mitsiakou to speak. Comrade, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, dear comrades and friends. Can you hear me? It's okay. And can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for organizing this. Dear comrades and friends, the imperialist war in Ukraine inevitably leaves its mark on International Women's Day this year. KKE expresses its solidarity to the women of Ukraine that became refugees and experienced the violence of the war, the loss of human lives, and anguish for the safety of their families, their children. This war is one of the consequences of the tragic situation that was created for the peoples after the overthrow of socialism and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. We condemn the unacceptable anti-communist rhetoric against Lenin, Bolsheviks, and the Soviet Union that the Russian leadership uses to justify its strategic plans at the area. Nothing can diminish, though, the huge contributions of socialism at the Soviet Union, which was a multinational union of equal socialist republics. The real solidarity to the Ukrainian people is the struggle in every country against imperialist war, the struggle against the involvement of its country in war. Solidarity is the condemnation of the military intervention of Russia and the condemnation of USA, NATO, and the EU that triggered the war and pushed Ukraine to ruination. Solidarity is the struggle against imperialist alliances to which the bourgeoisie of our countries and their governments are committed. It is the true humane solidarity of the people that can be expressed in many ways. It is the opposition to the action of fascist groups. It is the struggle to coordinate the struggle of the peoples so that the people show the way out from the war by targeting the real enemy, the bourgeoisie, their governments, and their imperialist alliances. We call them to target the real causes of war. At the same time, the rallies of the radical women's movement, trade unions, and mass organizations in our country that were organized for International Women's Day were turned to militant protests condemning the war of imperialists and the involvement of Greece in this war. These rallies gave voice to thousands of demonstrators who reject the competition for market shares, raw materials, energy, and their transportation routes. They sent a strong message demanding the closure of NATO's military bases and the disengagement from imperialist institutions and their plans. During an imperialist war, the violence of this exploitative system is expressed through extreme barbarity. However, in peacetime, this violence takes many other forms that affect every aspect of women's lives. In the 21st century, the scientific, technological, and productive conditions and possibilities exist so that every woman can live emancipated without her studies, work, or decision to have a family depending on economic and social factors and obstacles. These possibilities, though, are turned to new means of exploitation and oppression within the so-called digital economy. The expansion of women's work is accompanied by flexible working relations, irregular working hours, underemployment, and unemployment. IT, science, and technology is used to intensify work from home and working time arrangements, even during maternity leave. As a result, the distinction between working and non-working time is blurred. The intensification of work increases as manifested during the 2 years of the pandemic. This is the violence of employers and the state, which can be expressed even through the redundancies of pregnant women and mothers, the legal action against female trade unionists. The so-called green transition and the EU targets expand fuel poverty. As a result, more and more families have no heating and electricity. In Greece, this winter we mourned the loss of human lives. Among them, there were young children and their mothers who died because they tried to heat their homes with homemade unsafe mechanisms. During the last 2 years, the pandemic increased the insecurity because of the degradation and marketization of the health system. All people, including women, need the public free health system, doctors, tests, and medicines. Women need the prevention, early diagnosis, and treatment of women's health issues. Instead of these needs to be covered because of the scientific advances of the 21st century, these advances become an expensive commodity available only to those who can afford it. Among the various forms of and expressions of violence that women experience, KKE focuses also on domestic violence and abuse, sexual assault, rape, and violent attacks that result even to the murder of women by their partners or ex-partners. KKE unreservedly supports the stricter penal treatment of offenders who commit violent crimes of any form against women and condemns the cases that escape justice. At the same time, KKE highlights that any chances to criminal justice are not sufficient on their own to secure the protection of women from such offenses. When courts are understaffed and there is lack of scientific and social support provided by the state to the victims. The justified anger that women and men of the working class and other popular strata feel of the incidents of violence against women need to become anger against the values that are dominant in the contemporary exploitative society. The values of competition and individualism corrode the relationships of people, the relationships between men and women, inside and outside the family. People's anger needs to become a power of organization and struggle against the policies that condemn women to permanent insecurity regarding work, pay, childcare, and health. These are the policies that preserve and reproduce the economic and social dependence of one human on another in a marriage or partnership. KKE invites militant women to lead the struggle with optimism and persistence and weaken defeatism. We invite them to get inspiration from the most dynamic and heroic phases of class struggle, such as the International Women's Day. The history of the revolutionary labor movement demonstrates that the reactionary social views about the relationships between men and women change at the struggle against the primary cause of violence that generates all others, exploitation. At this struggle, equal relationships between partners that have the same social vision, the same concerns are shaped. KKE continues the struggle to prepare the ground for the socialism, communist society, and satisfaction of contemporary social needs of women at work, the protection of motherhood, and the creative use of leisure time. In socialism, communism, the scientific and technological advances are used to satisfy social needs through social ownership, scientific central planning, and workers' control. In this society, the abilities of all people are constantly developed, and everyone enjoys the gradual decrease of working time. The participation of all workers to assemblies at workplaces and the widened participation of women in the organs of the worker state is truly enabled. Women can discover the way to equality and emancipation through their participation in the struggle of the communist and workers' parties for social overthrow, for socialism, communism. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very, very much for that contribution. And again, please can I ask you to pass the greetings of this meeting of the Coordinating Committee and all our friends and comrades from across the world who've joined us. It is great to be hear your analysis of the situation of women in Greece and all the things that you're able to do, comrades, to work with and to work for equality. So thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you, Liz. I will pass the message.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to comrade who is joining us from a very long way away this evening, and that is from Guyana. I do thank the Communist Party of Guyana, who are one of the parties in membership of the Coordinating Committee of Communist Parties, for inviting from the Women's Progressive Organisation of Guyana, its president, Indra Chandapal. And Comrade Indra, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And we look forward very much to hearing what you're going to say to us. Thank you.
Good evening, Liz, and good evening, all sisters and brothers. I bring you warm and fraternal greetings on behalf of the Women's Progressive Organization of Guyana on International Women's Day. I wish to thank the Coordinating Committee of the Communist Party in Britain and the sisters and brothers who have made this event possible. I also wish to extend fraternal greetings to the representatives of Bangladesh, Britain, Cyprus, Greece, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Spain, and Sudan, who are part of this event. The observance of International Women's Day is taking place against the backdrop of a complicated and worrisome international situation. We do hope that there can be a resolution to the situation in the interests of all sides very soon. We're mindful that there are millions of women and children all over the world who are living under displacement, civil war, hunger, malnutrition, political and religious persecution, and the ravages of natural disasters. The topic which is being discussed is one which is very close to our hearts. We recognize the role of women in society is invariably influenced by a nation's social, religious, economic, and political history. We also believe that some of these influences can be changed once there is political will. However, there is one influence which is very much alive in the world, and that is patriarchy. Guyana is no exception to this reality. Even though women have made viable and impressive progress, the society remains patriarchal. There is still a predominance of behavior and attitudes at all levels of society that support the belief of the superiority of the male over the female. This can be seen at all levels, where women tend to undertake most of the work but are content to support men for positions at the table where decisions are made. This is prevalent in the religious, political, and economic spheres. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaims that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. All human beings are entitled to the rights and freedoms set out in the Declaration without any distinction based on sex. Since the basis of human rights is the inherent dignity and equality of each person, women cannot be treated as if they are of less value than men. The case in point is the tolerance and even approval of gender-based violence directed against women. Human dignity means that gender-based violence is unacceptable, intolerable, and unjustifiable no matter what. Gender-based violence is a violation of human rights and a life-threatening health and protection issue. It is estimated that 1 in 3 women will experience violence. In the case of Guyana, the Constitution expressly prohibits any form of discrimination and declares equality for all persons before the law and legislates women's entitlement to equal rights with men in all spheres of social, economic, and political life. In a study done by 2 researchers at the University of Guyana in 1989, their findings on this issue revealed that 3 out of 5 women were victims of domestic violence. This was considered a norm and found acceptance in society. Women advocates who have worked with women in their communities already knew of this reality, but the research findings were necessary to promote this issue at the national level. In the case of the Women's Progressive Organization, which started its work as early as 1953 among grassroots women, knew that this is a serious enough problem which had to be dealt with. Thus, when the PPPC came to office in October 1992, they took a very important step in signing on to the Inter-American Convention on the Prevention, Punishment, and Eradication of Violence Against Women, named Convention Belém do Pará in 1994. This convention has 25 articles pertaining to the name of the commission. In 1995, the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act was passed, which stipulated the conditions under which an abortion can take place. The 1996 Domestic Violence Act was passed, which stipulated the conduct that constitute domestic violence, the leverage of the court and police officers in these matters, including the range of protection that may be offered to complainant. Thereafter, the Prevention of Discrimination Act 1997 criminalizes act of discrimination based on gender, especially in employment, and aims to provide equal access to women and men to social benefits and services. The NGOs and civil society were very much part of the advocacy to bring awareness and prosecution wherever necessary. The laws were translated in reader-friendly language and distributed widely. To give effect to these important legislation, there were several measures which were put in place. With the collaboration of civil society, the government provided monies and buildings to help with shelters, counseling, and the provision of legal aid. In 1996, the National Commission for Women was established, which established the principle of 1/3 women to be in decision-making bodies. The decade of the 90s was the beginning of an empowering journey for women. In 2001, the government embraced the recommendations of the Constitutional Reform Committee and the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, which mandated that all political parties contesting general and regional election must have 33% women on their list of candidates. As we speak, 35% women are members of parliament. The Constitutional Rights Commission was established in 2009, which provided for 4 rights commissions, one of which is the Women and Gender Equality Commission. The vision is an environment where the rights of women are recognized as human rights and gender equality is upheld. There are 14 mandates enshrined in the Constitution, one of which is intended to promote, initiate, or cause to be carried out research and the creation of database on women and gender-related issues, including those of health, especially reproductive health, violence against women and the family, their socio-economic and political status, as the Commission may deem relevant, or as may be referred to it by the National Assembly. The Government of Guyana, under the Spotlight Initiative for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, has just concluded the National Plan of Action 2022 to 2026. The Spotlight Initiative is being implemented by the United Nations with financial support from the European Union. The purpose of the plan is to articulate the overall wisdom and objectives of the country and make it known to all stakeholders and potential development investors. The plan thus allows for coherence, definition, and separation of roles and responsibilities and more cohesive opportunities. There are 6 objectives of the plan and incorporate 5 ministries, the University of Guyana, CBOs, NGOs, and faith-based organization, and the Commission on Disability. The program will cost us $3,758,065 US. The journey that started in the 90s with the 4th World Conference of Women in 1995 has grown by leaps and bounds, especially in promoting women empowerment. It is our hope that we will be able to achieve the SDG Goal 5, 50-50 by 2030. While we have 35% women in the National Assembly, we believe that much more must be done to make 50-50 a reality. This can only be done through the collaboration of women leaders in partnership with their male colleagues. The task is unsurmountable, but we should not be daunted by that. For us in Guyana, we can celebrate knowing that much was done to promote gender equality and the empowerment of women. Let us strive to have a world of peace to advance the development of women. Without peace, there can be no development. I thank you.
Thank you very much, comrade. And again, our thanks for you being able to give us an insight into the situation in Guyana, the women's struggle in Guyana, and the key things that you're fighting for there. We do hope that you will be able to join us on other occasions, and again that you take our greetings to all your comrades. Thank you so much. This is probably a very good point in proceedings to say that we will publish the speeches that are being made at this meeting, but it is very important, if we are to do that, that everyone who has made a speech does send them in. I think there will be some of you who are sitting there thinking they said that last year and they didn't do it. We are going to make a very big effort this year to get all those speeches in and to make a publication. The women's group has also decided that we are going to hold an event probably in September or October in the first half of the autumn, where we have an all women's seminar on a theme that we will choose. About 10 years ago, or possibly even 11, we did hold one, and there are some women in this room on this call this evening who were at that original seminar. We've said for a long time that we will organise a women's seminar that is international. This year we are going to do it. So that was a notice. Thank you very much. We are now going...
Liz,
yes?
Can I make a very short announcement, please?
Yes, of course. Please do, Navid.
We are trying, comrades and friends, sorry to disrupt the proceeding. We are trying to make sure that no intruder can get into the meeting. So we are operating now a waiting room, and we are checking if the people who come to the waiting room are known to us or are known to some of you. If people come to try to come to the meeting, we ask the participant through the chat whether they know them. If we know them, we'll let them in. But if we don't know them, we ask you. And as a result, please keep an eye on the chat. If any of your friends are named there, if you know them and they are secure, we will let them in. Otherwise, we have got to keep them out. I'm sorry, and that's the only way that we can keep the meeting safe.
Oh, that is very good, and thank you very much to Comrade David and Comrade David, who are organising the security of the meeting behind the scenes. Everyone can keep an eye on the chat then. Now we will continue, and we are going to have the second piece from Sarah, young Iranian musician, pianist, and it is called Dance of Spring. Very appropriate music, very appropriate title, Dance of Spring, and it is by Shahrdad Rouhani. So if Comrade David could put the recording on, that would be fantastic. And can I say, just before he does that, that I do believe that Sarah is in the room with us on this call. So thank you, Sarah, for your beautiful music. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Sarah. That was absolutely beautiful again. I can see Navid's hand up. Was that a legacy hand, Navid, or did you want to come in and ask us? I think that might have been a legacy hand. So I'm going to go straight to now to give the floor to the Democratic Organization of Iranian Women, and I'm going to call on Azar Sefer to make a statement. Thank you very much, Azar.
Thank you very much, Liz. I apologize that I'm not turning on my video, so bear with me while I read out our statement. In Iran, 43 years of theocratic rule, intent on justifying its medieval outlook, passing misogynistic laws, and then normalizing their practice in the society, has brought with it violence in many forms. Legislation that degrades women as second-class citizens has culminated in the violence that is the promotion of child marriage, one of the most destructive outcomes of Islamic Republic's rule. In recent months, ever more vicious methods of violence against girls and women have started to make disturbing spectacle in the media. The beheading of a teenage child bride is one of many. As an example of the general condition, according to one human rights organization, the number of deaths in Kurdish cities in Iran have seen a 30% rise in the murder of women. In the last year, 41 women have been murdered, mostly by a male relative. At least 2 women were killed for having refused an offer of marriage. Last year, at least 94 women in Kurdish cities took their own life. The statistics include 3 girls under the age of 13. The theocratic regime claims that gender equality is contrary to Islamic law, and Iran is one of only 4 in the world that has not joined the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. The regime's laws have deprived girls and women of the right to education, inheritance, custody of their children, choice of spouse, and very importantly, equal rights to employment opportunities. The economy is devastated by years of privatizations and corruption, exacerbated by crippling US-led sanctions. Poverty has soared, while women's access to viable employment has become ever more limited. Recognizing the destructive consequences of women's lack of access to employment, in the early years of the 20th century, Clara Zetkin wrote in the magazine Equality, organ of the International Socialist Organization of Women, women's employment allowed women to stand on their own 2 feet economically and to break the economic bond that made them male dependent. In Iran, restrictions and discrimination against women in education and employment have perpetuated poverty and hardship for women and their dependents. The regime's reactionary nature and its violation of women's human rights is evident in the recent law on population youthfulness, forced childbearing, and the prohibition of abortion, which makes it a crime for women to control their own bodies. Despite all the restrictions in the Islamic Republic, Iranian women continue to make their powerful presence felt in social, economic, scientific, and artistic fields, as well as in sports and media. Women are active in all areas of struggle, in the strikes of the contract workers of oil and gas industries in June 2021, the strikes of the Haft Tappeh sugarcane mills, to the farmers' protests at water shortages in July 2021, in the protests in Isfahan, Khuzestan, and Lorestan, and in actions by environmental activists. Their presence in protests of 1996 and 1998 exacted great human cost, but it has not deterred women from taking their rightful place in the protest movement. Over the last year, the arrests and court rulings against women, trade union and labor activists, journalists, students, and even against the families of victims and plaintiff mothers have continued. Women such as Zainab Jalalian and Maryam Akbari Monfared continued their resistance in prisons alongside other fighters for social justice. The mothers of Khavaran, the victims of mass executions, and the plaintiff mothers during these dark years of tyranny not only carry the banner for their slain children, but are themselves pillars of the struggle of our people against dictatorship and have an important role in the general protest movement of our country. Iranian women know that by organizing and linking their legitimate demands with the demands of the popular movement and in action with the popular forces, they can pave the way for fundamental and democratic change. Our region has seen violence in the form of foreign occupation and war, devastating the lives of millions of women, men, and children, depriving them of a future. The Iran-Iraq War, the occupation of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the war in Syria, and Yemen. Today, we are acutely aware of further bloodshed by a new war, this time in Eastern Europe. The people of Ukraine and Russia must not become victims of further bloodshed. The war in Ukraine, which has displaced a large part of the population of the country, must end immediately. On the occasion of 8th of March, we affirm our mission for peace, freedom from exploitation, and for social justice. We call for the release of all political prisoners. Long live the struggle of women worldwide for equality, the elimination of gender discrimination and oppression, and for the protection of the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Azar, for that. And that insight into a very, very raw struggle against an absolutely ruthless dictatorship, and saluting all the very, very brave women of Iran in struggle, and the struggle of all our comrade sisters in the Democratic Organization of Iranian Women. Thank you very, very much for that. And again, we hope you'll be able to participate in our seminar later in the year. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to it too. Thank you.
Thank you. We now give the floor to our speaker from the Iraqi Women's League, Comrade Salma Sadawi. Comrade, the microphone, floor as it were, is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for making this event. Dear colleagues and comrades, may I extend my heartfelt greetings on this day, the 8th of March, which plays such an important role in promoting women's rights worldwide. Yes, it is a symbolic day, representing our righteous struggle for equality as we strive to unite and consolidate our voices, knowing fully well that the foundation for women's liberation and equality began with the liberation of the nation. We also unequivocally know that the reasons for the oppression of our nation and people, especially women and children, are perpetuated by non-altruistic forces where the aim is the promotion of administrative corruption, theft, and prevention of meritocracy. The Iraqi women's long struggle is a part of this international humanitarian crisis, where we have seen numerous examples of the extraordinary efforts and bravery from Iraqi women against military and economic alliance for the sake of the independence and liberation nationally, socially, and culturally. We have seen these continued efforts producing results in many spheres of social life, including the establishment of the Iraqi Women's League on March the 10th, 1952, which we celebrate every year. Through the many years of its operation, the Iraqi Women's League has taken a central role in standing up for the supporting the Iraqi people, especially women. One of the many successes of the League was the 1959 introduction of the Personal Status Law 188. That was a beacon of hope for the Iraqi women's movement and an important foundation for the realization of gender equality in the country. The Iraqi Women's League journey in serving the Iraqi people has continued and has led the League to not only be involved in, but also to play a central role in the Glory October Uprising 2019. This uprising that was a direct result of a corrupted regime that is not only subjugating the female portion of society solely due to their gender, but that is also fueling sectarian unrest and generating unbearable living conditions for the vast majority of the nation citizens, especially for women and children. The depravity of the current regime cannot be understated as they ardently aim away at portions of the Personal Status Law number 188 with an ultimate aim of retracting it completely. A disturbing example of this is the most recent Disciple of Women and Children law, a grotesque legislation of corporal punishment of women and children by male authority figures such as husbands, fathers, and teachers. The Iraqi Women's League petitioned the Iraqi Federal Supreme Court for the removal or retraction of this law to discipline women and children. But, however, sadly, the Federal Supreme Court rejects this motion. At the end, the 8th of March represent our struggle to turn this page on this inhuman chapter of our history that has been imposed on the people by a corrupted regime. It represents our efforts to overhaul the governing system, eliminating corruption and building a new system based on a human and egalitarian values with civil liberties and freedoms for all or its citizens. This is the only mean by which we are to secure full equality for women in our country. At the end, long life International Women's Day, long life Iraqi women, glory and eternity to martyrs and disappear women in the world and in Iraq. Every year, women live a free, dignified, and safe life. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very, very much, Comrade Sister, for that, again, wonderful insight into the struggle of women in your country and the struggle alongside men against very, very desperate conditions and the imposition of inequality, injustice, the reverse of everything that we are standing for. May your struggle succeed. And again, please take our greetings to the Iraqi Women's League.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like now to move to the next piece of music, which was chosen by the Iraqi Women's League. The singer is, the performer is Ihsan Imam, and he is singing about democracy and freedom. So if David could put that recording on for us, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
يا صاعدا إلى أحد لا تلتفت إلى أحد، يا صاعدا إلى أحد لا تلتفت إلى أحد. أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية، أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. يا صاعدا إلى أحد لا تلتفت إلى أحد، يا صاعدا إلى أحد لا تلتفت إلى أحد. أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية، أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. اليوم هبوا أسد من جد في الحق وجد. اليوم هبوا أسد من جد في الحق وجد. فلن يضيع الدم والبلاد ولن يطول الليل يا بغداد. فلن يضيع الدم والبلاد ولن يطول الليل يا بغداد. فنحن والفجر على ميعاد، فنحن والفجر على ميعاد. لا تلتفت إلى أحد يا صاعدا إلى أحد، لا تلتفت إلى أحد يا صاعدا إلى أحد. أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية، أمامك الحرية وروحك القضية. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. بلادك الأبية عثى بها الفساد وأحرقوا الحرث والعباد. يا صاعدا يا صاعدا يا صاعدا يا صاعدا.
Thank you very much. That was a very rousing piece of music. So thank you very much for choosing that and for bringing that. I think that I'm right in saying that the performer, that San Imam, is a colleague at one of the hospitals in London. I think I'm right. I think I'm right in saying that. I would just like at this point to mention some struggling comrade sisters who we have not been able to connect with today. That is in Lebanon. The Communist Party of Lebanon is a member of the Coordinating Committee of Communist Parties in Britain. And I know that we have at least one comrade from that party in the room with us. So please could you convey our greetings, Comrade Nada, could you convey our greetings to the struggling women in Lebanon, the women, and we hope that next year we will be able to arrange for them to join in. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade. Could I now ask if we have Sultana Jolly with us? She was not present at the beginning of the meeting, and with our unwelcome interruptions, I didn't want us to lose her. So could someone please check whether she is with us? If she is, then please do come to the floor. No. Okay. In that case, we'll try again. But I now have a short message for the meeting to read on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Liberation Organization, formerly known as the Movement for Colonial Freedom. Many of you are very, very familiar with this organization, which will be 70 years old in 2024. It's an organization that many of us and previous comrades have struggled with over the years. So it's from the Executive Committee of Liberation Organization. It says, may we convey our congratulations and warm greetings on the occasion of the 8th of March, International Women's Day, to all attendees of this evening's special event, and to all those who continue tirelessly and courageously to advance the struggle of women and girls against exploitation, oppression, and for equality and justice around the world. International Women's Day is being marked this year against a particularly fraught and turbulent backdrop, with massive challenges continuing to be posed against women and all those advocating for peace and progress in their respective societies. At a time when jingoism and the drumbeat for war sounds louder and louder, Liberation recognizes that women continue to be both at the forefront of those impacted by the catastrophic effects of war and oppression, as well as the struggle against both of these ills. Liberation joins all those brave women advocates and their supporters in saying a resounding no to war and rule by force of arms. Liberation salutes the inspiring women campaigners and the memories of those now departed, who led from the front in the struggle for their people's emancipation from the shackles imposed upon them by colonialism and imperialism, as well as against disastrous conditions often left in their wake. Liberation stands firm in its denunciation of the cruel legacies of colonialism, slavery, and imperialist aggression, and continues to campaign for the adoption of a progressive foreign policy by the British government. Our warm greetings to you all again. We hope you have a wonderful evening. So thank you very, very much to the executive of the Liberation Organisation, and for all, not only for your message, but for all your support for us and our member organisations throughout the year. We know that we can depend on you, and we hope that you think the same about us as well. Thank you very, very much. Okay, I'm now going to move on to the contribution of the Communist Party of Spain, the PSE, and I'm going to call Africa Moreno, who is responsible for the external affairs of the overseas branch of the Spanish Communist Party living here in Britain. Comrade Africa, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes, perfectly. Hello.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us, for organizing and inviting us here today. It's our pleasure to be surrounded by so many comrades and sisters. So thank you. Violence against women, it's a worldwide pandemic, but nobody seems interested in looking for a cure. Femicide is just the tip of the iceberg, but violence against women can take many shapes and forms. Spain is no exception, and although the feminist movement has widespread in the last few years and the situation of women has improved in some aspects, Spain is far from real equality, and our rights are constantly at risk. The rise of the far right puts on the stake what the Spanish women have accomplished after years of struggle, since they deny the very existence of sexist violence or inequality. Today, I would like to draw attention to one specific type of violence that usually gets overlooked. This type of gender-based violence is referred to as violencia vicaria, and it's a type of gender violence by proxy, which is aimed at harming a partner where it hurts most, by inflicting damage on their children and or their pets. According to data by Spain's Observatory Against Domestic and Gender Violence, 40 minors have been murdered at the hands of their fathers or their mothers, male partners or ex-partners since 2013 in Spain. Again, murder is just the ultimate expression of violence, but children and their mothers can be harmed in many ways. An abuser or perpetrator of sexist violence will never be a good father. Violencia vicaria has been included in Spain's latest child protection law, Ley Rhodes, named after the British pianist who pushed for the country to revise its protection of minors. This type of violence has sadly been on the news recently, and cases like Juana Rivas' battle to protect her children from her abuser show us once again that justice is not on our side, that the judicial system serves the patriarchal interests and does not protect us or our children. The Spanish Communist Party stands in solidarity with women's struggle across the world, especially with those who are suffering the consequences of their neoliberal imperialistic governments and those whose lives are in danger at this very moment in Palestine, Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and sadly many more. As communist women, we struggle to end both the capitalist and the patriarchal system that exploits us and kills us. This 8th of March, once again, we need to take the streets and keep the struggle until we stop this criminal alliance. As Vivir Quintana, who is a Mexican singer and activist, states in her song Vivir Sin Miedo, living with no fear, if you touch one of us, we will all respond. Long life to the working women around the world. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you very much indeed, Comrade Africa, and particularly for drawing our attention to violence against children and very young people and the importance of that struggle, and also, of course, the way in which violence against children is in turn violence against their mothers and all their families, and how important it is that we try. Thank you for everything else that you said, and thank you also for your huge expression of solidarity, which I can say to everyone who is gathered here. The Communist Party of Spain is a massively supportive member of the Coordinating Committee of Communist Parties in Britain. And again, we hope very, very much that you will be able to join the seminar later in the year. Thank you for all your support and greetings to everyone.
Thank you, comrade.
Thank you. We now we are going to move to the last of our speech contributions, and I always say last but not least because we take countries in the alphabetical order and Sudan always comes last, but it is not last, and the struggle of the Sudanese people and the struggle of the women in Sudan in the leadership of that struggle is something that we should always be in solidarity with. So definitely last but not least, Comrade Amira Osman, Communist Party of Syria. The floor is yours, Comrade Amira. Amira's iPad, it says. Comrade Amira.
Thank you, Comrade Liz.
I was worried then, I wondered where you were.
So yes, the internet sometimes comes and goes. Thank you very much, Comrade Liz. And since our gathering last year to celebrate the International Women's Day, a lot of things, good and bad, have happened at national, regional, and international levels. And violence against women is still happening despite progress women have made. See our theme about violence against women very
Comrade, we are losing you again. I think that what we will do, if Comrade David can hear us, is shall we have the beautiful singing that is recorded at the Communist Party of Sudan have chosen. It is a song called I Am Free. Let's have that, and we'll try to get Comrade Amira after the song from Sudan.
أنا من أم راقية وشعبها خالي وتحاشى الكسل أنا من راقية وشعبها منتصر أنا من راقية وشعبها منتصر سودانية حرة حرة وطني حر سودانية حرة حرة وطني حر وطني حر وطني وطني
Well, as somebody has just written into the chat, what a wonderful Sudanese song. That is fantastic. I wonder whether we have now got Amira. Can we try Amira again, please?
Yes,
Amira.
yeah. And to begin with, Sudanese women, thank you, Liz. To begin with, Sudanese women have been at the forefront of the resistance to the military coup that took place on the 25th of October last year, where the military backed by the Rapid Security Forces took power and declared a state of emergency. And since then, the Sudan has entered the dictatorship era, which is characterized by economic hardship, collapse of health and education services, lack of democracy, severe abuses to human rights, and escalation of state violence against women and girls. A clear departure from the December Revolution and it is slogan, freedom, peace, and justice. Despite that, women have continued to show bravery and courage since the start of the revolution. The revolution actions include street protests, the blocking of roads, and building of barricades, leading chants against racism and for a peaceful and democratic Sudan. They also actively participated in the sitting in at different sites, including at the military headquarters, where a massacre was committed by the army and the rapid support forces on 3rd of June 2019. Innovative means have been used to support the process of the revolutionary and democratic change. These included women's only and mothers and fathers march and street protest. These marches and protests aim to send various messages to those who are ruling the country, that the Sudanese people from all ages are united together to topple the current regime and to achieve freedom, peace, and justice. And thus the country is united against violence against women and girls. Women also participated in the revolutionary actions at the neighborhood, including awareness-raising campaigns on how to respond to the brutality of the army, the police, and the militia, and where to seek advice and support. Women have continued to work with the resistance committees at local level and to continue the struggle. The security services, rapid security forces, police, and the army have responded brutally to these rising women's activists by firing live ammunition and tear gas, including unknown and expired tear gas, as well as arresting, kidnapping, and sexual assaulting women protesters, including raping protesters during the sitting at the military headquarters and other sites, as well as in front of the presidential palace. Many female detainees were badly treated and some experienced sexual assault while in detention. A few pregnant women had miscarriages while in detention and no medical assistance was provided for them. Others were murdered during peaceful street protests in remote areas, particularly the Darfur region. Female activists have been subject to continuous attack and abuse by the military and militia. Hospitals, including Omdurman Maternity Hospital, were hit by bullets and tear gas. Patients and health workers, including female staff, were threatened, physical abuse, intimidated, and sexual assaulted. This is a serious violation to international human rights law. Since the coup, tens of people have been killed, thousands have been injured, and hundreds are still in hospital. Some have been killed while they were in hospital seeking treatment from injuries caused by the live ammunition or police and the militia assaults. A few of the protesters were run over by military vehicles while protesting peacefully. Male and female children were also abducted, detained, and abused. Lack of information about their whereabouts was worrying to many families, given the scale of brutality used by the army and the militia against the peaceful protesters. Lawyers who were trying to represent detainees were struggling to get in touch with them. Bodies of some of the kidnapped activists and those who were arrested and taken to unknown location were found on the street with signs on their bodies revealing torture and abuse. Women activists, including all the women who tried to offer refuge, security, shelter, food, and water to the protesters, were also who were trying to hide from the militia and the police, were beaten, sexually assaulted, or detained. Women have resisted the military regime using innovative means, including art, songs, and poetry. Our theme of this year, International Women's Day, Not Violence Against Women, sends a clear message. We must work together to end violence against women and girls at all levels. We must scale up our solidarity with women and girls who are struggling to protect themselves and their children, those who are fighting dictatorship and for justice and peaceful society. Long live 8th of March, International Women's Day. Long live women's solidarity. Long live communism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Amira. And in Sudan, women are struggling in the face of incredible horror and ruthlessness. And we've heard Liberation's message to our event this evening. And I think it is very, very important for us to remember that what is happening in Sudan these days, and the incredible struggle not to have military dictatorship at any price, but that military dictatorship and the continuance of the military and its influence is a direct legacy of British colonialism. And that legacy is an absolutely ruthless but very strong legacy all around the world. And thank you, Amira. We all stand with you, and please to convey to your party and to the struggling women on the streets that we will give support and solidarity in your struggle, which is at the forefront of the struggle between those striving towards socialism, democracy, change, and those who want to preserve the world for big business and the war that needs it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Comrades, we are now going to move into a directly cultural part of our agenda this evening. We have some songs from which are going to be performed, as it were, live. They are not recorded, from comrades from Bangladesh.
Comrade Lees, sorry to bother you, but the comrades from Bangladesh just wrote on the chat book, because they are 2 children, that they are going now, because I think it's they have left just now, because they were waiting for nearly 2 hours, and they were children. Sorry about that.
I'm so sorry, because I didn't realize that there were children with them.
They just wrote on the chat book, and I'll read it out. It's on the chat book to everybody. Happy International Women's Day from Udichi, UK. Unfortunately, we must be going, from Tora, Michelle, and Ashima. So sorry about that, but it's a slight mess up, yeah? Not mess up, but they waited a bit, but then they're stepping out, yeah?
Well,
sorry, comrade, about that. I think we got disturbed from different ways today. They would have loved to sing their songs, but they have just wrote on the chat line there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Comrade Nissa, for drawing our attention to the message. We are very, very sorry that they had to go, and our apologies, because we didn't realize that there were child performers with the comrades. So we are very, very sorry about that. I think we should have another occasion where we have between us the most wonderful musical and artistic resource, and I think we should perhaps do something in the form of a concert and something pretty soon where we can involve them. But thank you very, very much. So,
thank you, Comrade Liz. Thank you, Comrade.
thank you. And of course, we're sorry also that we have missed Comrade Sultana, but when we publish our speeches, we will include Sultana's speech in with the others so that we won't have missed it. Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce a recording. It is the last piece by Sarah Bahri. It's called Lawn Tennis, and it is also by Wilhelm Peterson Berger. So thank you very much. And after that, we are going to hear 3 songs from our artist we invited to play this evening and who plays each year, Sylvia. I will come in and introduce those 3 songs after we have heard from Sarah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. I know that you're in the meeting, and I can tell from the look on everyone's faces how much they enjoy your beautiful music, and you perform for us again and again. We really do love to hear the pieces that you bring to us. Thank you very, very much indeed. We're now going to move to 3 pieces by our, as it were, guest performer, Silvia Balducci. And Silvia, as it were, enabled us to continue this meeting because we played her recording when we were being disturbed by those whose voices and values are the complete opposite of our own. So in a certain kind of way, Silvia, as it were, made sure that our voices get heard, not only on International Women's Day, of course, but symbolically, our voices will be heard. We will not be silenced. We will not. But my introduction to Silvia's items was cut slightly short. So I do want to emphasize that Silvia was particularly dedicating her performance this evening to the women of Chile, struggling women of Chile, and the amazing things that they have achieved. And I wanted to say that Chile, although I don't think they're here this evening, they have been a very, very long-standing member and supporter of everything we do in the coordinating committee of communist parties in Britain. So for Chilean women, for the struggle in Latin America, there are 3 pieces. I won't come in between each one. David will play all 3 pieces. I think you'll recognise some of them. So David, over to you to put on Silvia. And I don't know if Silvia is in the evening, in the meeting, but if you are, Silvia, fantastic. And thank you again. David.
Maldigo del alto cielo, la estrella con su reflejo, maldigo los azulejos, destellos del arroyuelo, maldigo del bajo suelo, la piedra con su contorno, maldigo el fuego del horno, porque mi alma está de luto, maldigo los estatutos del tiempo con sus bochornos. ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? Maldigo la cordillera de los Andes y de la costa, maldigo señor langosta y larga baja de tierra, también la paz y la guerra, lo franco y lo veleidoso, maldigo lo perfumoso, porque mi anhelo está muerto, maldigo todo lo cierto y lo falso con lo dudoso. ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? Maldigo la primavera con sus jardines en flor y del otoño el color yo lo maldigo de veras, a la nube pasajera la maldigo tanto y tanto, porque me asiste un quebranto, maldigo el invierno entero, con el verano embustero, maldigo profanos y santos. ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? ¿Cuánto será? ¿Cuánto será? Ay, ay, ay. Yo maldigo a la solitaria figura de la bandera, maldigo cualquier emblema, la Venus y la Araucaria, el trino de la Canaria, el cosmos con sus planetas, la tierra y todas sus grietas, porque me aqueja un pesar. Maldigo del ancho mar sus puertos y sus caletas, grande será mi dolor. valles y los desiertos, maldigo muerto por muerto, y el vivo de ella alabe con su plumaje. Yo la maldigo a porfía, la Saúl en la sacristía, porque me aflige un dolor. Maldigo el vocablo amor con toda su porquería. ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? ¿Cuánto será? ¿Cuánto será? Maldigo por fin lo blanco, lo negro con lo amarillo, obispos y monaguillos, ministros y predicandos. Yo lo maldigo llorando, lo libre y lo prisionero, lo dulce y lo pendenciero. Le pongo mi maldición en griego y en español por culpa de un traicionero. ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? ¿Cuánto será? ¿Cuánto será mi dolor? Guarda come ci parlano di libertà, quando di essa ci privano in verità. Guardali come predican tranquillità, quando ci tormentano le autorità. Chiedili al Santo Padre che vive a Roma, che gli sta sgozzando la colomba. Guarda come promettono il paradiso, quando come grandine piove il sopruso. Guarda che entusiasmo per la sentenza, ben sapendo che uccidono l'innocenza. Chiedile al Santo Padre che vive a Roma, che gli stanno sgozzando la colomba. Come voglia da l'esecuzione, tranquillamente fa la colazione. Con questo si misero la corda al collo, il quinto comandamento non è più quello. Chiedile al Santo Padre che vive a Roma, che gli stanno sgozzando la colomba. Napoli. Two, three. Una mattina mi son svegliata, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi son svegliata e ho trovato l'invasor.
Una mañana me he despertado, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mañana me he despertado y he descubierto al invasor.
partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire.
Oh partisano, me voy contigo. Oh vela ciao, vela ciao, vela ciao, ciao, ciao. Oh partisano, me voy contigo, porque me siento morir.
E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio da partigiana, tu mi devi seppellire.
Si yo muero, cual partisano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Y si yo muero, cual partisana, tú me debes sepultar.
E seppellire lassù in montagna, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior.
Cava una fossa nella montagna, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Cava una fossa en la montaña, bajo la sombra de una flor.
Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Tutte le genti che passeranno mi diranno che bel fior.
Cuando pase toda la gente, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Y cuando pase toda la gente, me dirán che bella flor. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà.
Morto per la libertà. Well, thank you. That was fantastic, wasn't it? Do feel free to mute and clap if you'd like to. That was amazing. Thank you very, very much indeed. That almost, comrades, sisters, brothers, friends, it almost brings us to the end of this year's International Women's Day celebration. But it remains for me to propose some thanks. Just before I do that, please can I remind speakers to send in the text of their speeches, and we will have a publication. And please can I appeal to all of you as we organise our women's seminar for September or October. The details will be available soon. Please, all your parties and organisations, to be able to join in and make fantastic contributions to that, as you have done tonight. So for tonight's meeting, please can I first of all thank the coordinating committee itself, all our parties who are members of it. They are all parties that have a branch or an organisation in Britain, and we work together on many things. We show solidarity with each other. We provide information to each other. We really, really do build together the communist movement in Britain and in our respective parties. Thank you
making it possible for us to hold this event. And I particularly thank the coordinating committee's women's group who have put tonight's event together. We've been working for a number of months on this, and without all these ideas and contributions that you made, we couldn't have had this celebration here this evening. I'd like also to thank very, very particularly Comrade David Pettifer of the Communist Party of Britain, who has set the meeting up, enabled us to come to the meeting, to meet, to use our recordings, to speak live, to do whatever it was that we described to him that we wanted to do. And tonight, David, can I particularly thank you for enabling us to stand so firm against fascists and continue our meeting, because it's not only this meeting, it's symbolizing what we can do. We will stand. So thank you very, very much, David, and also to Navid for providing extra technical support tonight and trying to keep us all safe. Thank you to all the speakers. I couldn't thank you enough. Amazing contributions. We could not hear this anywhere else. It is just fantastic what you have brought to us. The ideas from your struggle, details of your struggle, the inspiration of your struggle, and also the sense of what we all share together going forward. Thank you also to the performers, whether you were recorded or live. That was fantastic. And last but not least, of course, to everyone who has been present in this meeting or who has watched live on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. Thank you all for coming. We hope that it has been an inspiration to you, and that we will go forward from this moment. The tremendous fight we have, which is a class struggle against violence of every form against women. And without that fight, we cannot ever get to socialism. So fight for against violence, for women's equality, justice, the fight for democracy, the fight against imperialism, and the fight we will take forward from this evening. So thank you. It just remains for us to close with the Internationale. We've decided this year to simply play the music. You can join in with the singing in all your languages, if you wish, muted or unmuted. And when the Internationale has finished, the meeting will close. Solidarity.
Before we go there, Liz, I'd like to say thank you to you for your chairing.
Oh, what an honour! Thank you thank you very much, Ruth. It couldn't have been a greater privilege. Thank you. So we will close with the Internationale. Solidarity with all your struggles. Long live the international working class movement. Long live the struggle against imperialism and for peace, and long live International Women's Day and all its values. Thank you, and thank you, David, for putting on a recording for the last time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good night, comrades. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Everyone, and thank
Night.
you.
Good
See you in
night.
September.
Good night.